Debate topic number 4 is the gods worshipped by scientists and atheists. This came, of course, with a link. Let's check it out.
When we think of science, we think of the scholarly and objective pursuit of factual knowledge. However, many scientific concepts had their inception in, and still contain the vestiges of, mythology, mysticism, metaphysics, and occult ideologies. Even the Royal Society, a learned academy for science which serves as a scientific advisor to the British government, and funds research fellowships and scientific companies, began as the Invisible College of the Rosicrucian Occult Metaphysical Fraternity. The word worship means the act of reverencing or showing respect and love to a god by performing rites such as providing offerings to the god, or by praying and calling on the god's name. The following is a list of gods and characters from mythology which are currently worshipped by modern scientists and scholars. Number 10. Thesis. In Greek mythology, Thesis was a primordial goddess of creation, and is thought to be the child of the primordial deity KWAZ. It is believed that Thesis helped create the world Gaia. Thesis is sometimes identified with Physis. In modern scholarship and science, thesis is the name used for the presentation of an author's research, findings, or proposition to be discussed or proven. All scientists and scholars are required to submit a formal written thesis in support of candidature for an academic degree from a university or professional qualification. Thesis's alternate identity physis is the origin of the scientific word physics. Number 9. Theia. In Greek mythology, Theia was the Titan goddess of light, vision, and divine perspective. In modern science, Theia's name is the origin of the word theory, an idea or set of ideas that are intended to explain facts or events. In modern mathematics, Theia's name is also the origin of the word theorem, a formula or statement that can be proven from other formulas or statements. All modern scientists and mathematicians routinely worship and call on Theia by using the words theory and theorem. Number 8. Kronos. In Greek mythology, Kronos was the leader and the youngest of the first generation of Titans, and was the personified god of time. Kronos helped to form the ordered universe of earth, sea, and sky. The name Kronos is the origin of the word chronology, which is used by modern historians and scholars to denote the order in which a series of events happened. Kronos is worshipped in the field of chronology, the science and study of measuring time, and in the field of archaeology, the scientific study of the past, which comes from the muse of origins in Greek mythology named Arche. Number 7. Helios. In Greek mythology, Helios was the personified god of the sun. The name Helios is worshipped in modern science as the origin of the word helium, the second chemical element on the periodic table. The name Helios is the origin of the word heliocentric used in astronomy to relate to the sun as the center of the solar system. Helios is also the origin of the astronomical terms aphelion referring to the point farthest from a sun, and perihelion referring to the point closest to a sun. Number 6. Psyche. In Greek mythology, Psyche was the name of a character who overcame obstacles to win the love and marriage of the Greek god of desire named Cupid. In modern science, psyche is a word used to refer to the mentality of a person, and psyche is the origin of the word psychology, the scientific study of the mind and behavior. Number 5. Gaia. In Greek mythology, Gaia was the personified primordial goddess of the earth. In Greek mythology, Gaia was considered the great mother of all, creator and giver of birth to the earth, the universe, the heavenly gods, and the titans. In the Roman pantheon, the equivalent to Gaia was named Terra. The name of Gaia is worshipped in modern science and mathematics as the origin of the words geometry, geology, and geography. Number 4. Asteria. In Greek mythology, Asteria was the goddess of falling stars, nocturnal oracles, and the daughter of the titans Cronos and Phoebe. Modern scientists worship the name of Asteria in the words astronaut, astrophysics, and astrology. Within the field of astrology, the study of the stars and celestial bodies, there are countless references to gods from Greek and Roman mythology, including the names of constellations, and the names of the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Number 3. Nemesis. In Greek mythology, Nemesis, also called the goddess of Ramnus, was the goddess of divine retribution against those who succumb to hubris and arrogance. Nemesis is worshipped by modern mathematicians because the name Nemesis is related to the Greek word mnemein, meaning to give what is due, which is the etymological origin of the words number and arithmetic. Number 2. Hydros. In Greek mythology, Hydros was one of the first primordial gods to emerge along with Thesis as a child of chaos. Modern scientists worship the name of Hydros in the word hydrogen, the first chemical element on the periodic table. The name of Hydros is also the origin of the scientific terms hydraulics, hydrothermal, hydrotherapy, hydrodynamic, hydropower, hydrolysis, hydroponics, and hydroelectric. End. Number 1. Electra. In Greek mythology, Electra was the daughter of King Agamemnon, and a princess of Argos. Electra plotted with her brother to kill her mother and stepfather as revenge for the murder of their father Agamemnon. Electra's name appears in the scientific field of psychology as Electra complex, the psychological competition of a girl child with her mother for the attention and affection of her father. The name Electra shares etymological origins with the scientific word electron, the fundamental subatomic negative charge carrying particle. The name Electra is worshipped in the scientific terms electrolysis, electricity, and electronics, which dominate and define the modern world. Paying an electric bill is like paying a tithe, or monetary offering, to Electra. With recognition that the god Jesus came from the African-Egyptian god Horus, and that much of Greek philosophy was influenced by African-Egyptian culture, then African-Egyptian gods can be worshipped by replacing the names of the Greek mythological characters used as scientific, mathematic, and scholastic terms with the names of African-Egyptian gods. We can replace all scientific and scholastic uses of Thesis, the Greek goddess child of chaos, with the name of the African-Egyptian goddess of order named Ma'at. We can replace all scientific, mathematic, and scholastic references to Thea, the Greek goddess of divine perspective, with the name of the African-Egyptian goddess Wajet, the Eye of Horus, or divine perspective. We can replace all scientific and scholastic references to Kronos, the Greek god of time, with the name of the African-Egyptian god of time named Jehudi. We can replace all scientific references to Helios, the Greek god of the sun, with the name of the African-Egyptian god of the sun named Re. We can replace all scientific references to the Greek mythological character of Psyche, with the name of the African-Egyptian concept of the soul and personality called the Ba bird. We can replace all scientific and mathematic references to the Greek goddess of the earth named Gaia, with the name of the African-Egyptian god of the earth named Geb. We can replace all scientific references to the Greek god of the stars named Asteria, with the name of the African-Egyptian goddess of the starry sky named Nut. We can replace all scientific and mathematic references to the Greek goddess Nemesis, with the name of the African-Egyptian goddess of mathematics named Seshat. We can replace all scientific references to the Greek god of water named Hydros, with the name of the African-Egyptian god of water named Nun. And we can replace all scientific references to the Greek mythological character of Electra, with the name of the African-Egyptian subatomic god of creation named Ptah.
I don't know if it has to do with being a scientist, but that was a dope video. That made me consider some things I hadn't considered before. I'm gonna put that video up on the Discord. I appreciate that from Trigger Happy 262. That video is called Top 10 Gods Worshipped by Scientists and Atheists. I think that was a good one. I'll put that on the Discord. By the way, on the Discord, because I feel like I've been neglecting that for a little bit now. I have so much different things to take care of. On the Discord, we have channels for like Black documentaries and science channels and stuff like that. I'm going to put this in the science channel. You guys can also add Black documentaries and stuff on the Discord. I still think it's a good spot where folks can go and find information. If you have books on PDF that you want to send my way, I could post them up on the Discord as well. With that said, Carl, should be topic number 4, the gods worshipped by scientists and atheists. What say you to what you saw?
Never go full hotep. Never go full hotep. This is full hotep, man. We going 100 miles an hour in the hotep, man. Oh, man. It was interesting, but I mean,
full hotep.
I don't think you never go full hotep, man. This is I feel like okay, how can I put this? I don't think we worship these gods. You know, these terms, they come from the Greek, because so much of Western culture is rooted in Greek and Roman mythology and whatnot. I don't think you're worshiping these deities just by simply saying, you know, I had to write a thesis. You know, there's so much of the etymology that comes from different gods. So, I mean, by their logic, okay, so if it's Thursday, does that mean I worship Thor? Because the word Thursday comes from Thor's day, you know? So this is just the world that we live in, unfortunately. I don't think that you're worshiping or showing reverence to these ancient deities by using the names. I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a stretch to me. I feel like it's kind of a stretch. I don't think that's, I don't see where that's happening. Many people even know the history behind etymology of these words, or the origin behind these words, but I don't think by using these words you're paying homage to these ancient Greek deities. As far as replacing the words, that's fine. If you want to do that, I don't see there's any harm in it. But I just don't feel like we're worshiping these gods because we're using the etymology behind them. Many times because we live in the Western world, we live in a world that's dominated by European culture, and they take their lead from ancient Greece, ancient Rome. That's considered to be the foundation blocks to their society. But I don't think that you know that proves that we're worshiping whoever those gods are. If I say meteorology or astronomy, and I don't think we're worshiping those particular deities because we use those words. That's just my thoughts on it. It seems a little far fetched to me. I feel like we went a little bit too far into the realm of nonsense, and just my thoughts on that.
I can appreciate that, Carl. I take a different look at it, man. Over the last few years, I've been really looking at, I've been really trying to understand the spirituality thing more. I grew up religious, but I'm not religious. I'm trying to understand the spirituality thing more. And this is where a guy like Gaston Up will probably be good with that occultism stuff, because I realize there's a power in naming something, right? Like we talk about these states, these nation states in Africa, who's a Nigerian, who's a Ghanaian. There's a power in that shit. There's a power in being named a Nigerian, because we know who that name, who that was named after. And so there's a power in this thing. I talked about this, I believe it was last week or the week before. Maybe it was the week before. I think Buana was here. No, actually it was last week. Like I have a European last name, unfortunately. And so you could tell from my last name. No, Buana was here. It was the week before. You could tell from my last name. Or, for example, if you listen to that last name, Roll, like we know where you from in our country. You from Exuma, you're from that plantation. We know that. So I think there's a power in this naming thing. And so this video kind of opens me up to this idea. Some of these terms that we use, and we got to question it. Cambon, Obadali Cambon, who Buana mentioned earlier. I read a paper of his on this show here. And I feel him on what he was saying as a person searching for spirituality and better understanding. I feel him on what he was saying. He was talking about like Pan-Africanism and how we name our people and stuff like that. And how, we'll name a kid David, for example, and don't know that David means something like the head cracker or something. And then you wonder why you have these problems with these kids. You've been naming them some other shit. Why don't you get back to our naming systems in West Africa or what have you? And I think there's a power in naming something. And I think there's something to that, because if you look at this European, anytime he so-called discovers some shit, he names it after himself. There's something to that. And we have to consider that and look into it a little bit deeper. Before I go to Buana, let me read. Yana B said, this is some bullshit. She said, no. Okay. Trigger262 says, my question is, for one, he mentioned the definition of worship. And I think a lot of times African people don't seem to acknowledge that there is a cultural lens to science. But also, if it's the case that they name their scientific concepts, then why can't we do the same thing? Meaning, if it's the case that other people have different approach and lens to science, why couldn't we do the same thing? And I think this follows up with the rejection of African spirituality by a lot of atheists amongst our people. You seem to trust European lenses to science and not yours. Marcus McGee says, I get pissed when every theory and planet is named after someone who hates me. Yeah, man, there's a power in this shit. Like I live in Brooklyn, and the names of these streets in New York City, when you come to check out who is Nostrand, this dude is some slave owner. And we around Nostrand Avenue and Flatbush Avenue, all this shit all the time. Like, there's something about that shit. There's something to that. With that said, Buana, what say you to all of this?
Well, I think it was an insightful video. I've learned some things that I never knew before. I would, for me, I would really pass this prompt on to the Black Pentagrammers, because I'm not the best. I'm not a metaphysician. Those guys are metaphysicians, so they'll break down these kinds of terms and the occultist connection to it better than I can. But I think that what happens is the reason why we don't go about the business of renaming these kinds of things. It has to do with power. It has to do with we don't have the power to. We are formerly colonized people, so we was more inclined to be accepting of these things because it's a common agreement among colonizers, and if we exist in that spaces, it's something that we accept. So until we are able to get out of that space and redefine these terms and ideas, this is where we are. In I think the Chinese, I don't think the China they talk about the Chinese New Year. So I guess they have a whole calendar of what they go by. The Arabs, we live in 2023. They have a whole system set up with the year that they currently live in and exist in. Because they have the power to redefine that. I think that the only black group, who has redefined terms in terms of time, in terms of reality, is the Ethiopian, because their Christmas is completely different from our Christmas. Their time is a little bit different from what we consider to be time. So they was able to garner that by when they say that they are only, I guess, black nation that wasn't colonized them, and I think Liberia and one of them other countries. I think that our issue is in terms of power, and we can't necessarily define what our reality is at this time. I personally believe that I will change. I'm confident in that. I have to be confident in that. But currently, we don't exist in that space. So I think that that's my issue. But I don't have an issue with the prompt at all. I think that it was insightful. I've learned some things. But what am I going to do with it? I wish I could redefine what a theory is by calling it through an African lens. But when I get out in the so-called modern world, I have to play with the terms that was given to me to advance myself. So that will be the barrier that I'll come up against, even if I was to define it with my own African lens. But I'll stop there.
But Buana, let me ask you a quick question. I'm sure Carl wants to add something. From where we are now to where we want to be in the future with power, what do we do in the meantime? Now, you said you're not really sure what you would do with it, but in general, as far as what Trigger Happy is talking about, right? What do we do? Do we just sit down and wait till power arrives, or shouldn't we be proactive? Especially in places where we have the ability, especially in places where we have the ability to define the reality. What should we do?
I personally believe, and I go take it back to Marcus Garvey, even though his name seems to be unpopular, all of a sudden, I think that we should be a government in waiting. And a government in waiting, or people who defines themselves as a government in waiting, would do all the things that a structured government or operate in a way that a structured government should operate. Therefore, what I mean by that, we should have our own scientists, we should have our own mathematicians, we should have our own doctors, we should all these fields of industry, that we currently have access to. We should operate in a way to where we perfect it, but operate as if we were a government in waiting. Therefore, if we were given when we decide, let me put it like that, when we decide to take our opportunity to operate as an official government, there will be no shortfalls. For example, in African societies, when the colonial governments left, the big deficit was in a whole society where you have 1 million people, you only have 2 doctors. On a society where you have 5 million people, you only have 2 scientists. Why? Because they was not prepared for what if these people decide to leave, and take I believe, the right to self-determining, be self-determining, what would happen? So I believe as we prepare, we should be a government and we can operate as such. So all of us, since we've been exposed to all this information, should perfect whatever field of industry we are in. So when we decide to take that opportunity, we will be able to. We wouldn't need to miss a beat. We would function as though we were a government. So there would be no shortfalls. So that's what I believe that we should currently be doing within the interim period until we get there. But that's my views on that.
No, I can appreciate that response, Bonner. Kyle, you want to add something?
Yeah, let me just add, in reading the chat, trigger, I made the term hotep, so let me apologize for that because, we should not use hotep in a derogatory way. So I want to apologize for that, first of all. I remember how Dr. Huey P. Newton described power as the ability to define phenomenon and to have it act in a desired manner. So, with that said, the ability to define uh, phenomenon in nature and society is how you define power. The ability to say what a thing is and have it act in that way. And I think that's something that has been lost by African people over the centuries, is that we don't define things. We get defined. So in retrospect, looking at this video, I guess that's an attempt to take back the power to define reality and to have it act in the manner that we decide, as opposed to have another person decide. So I got some things to think about.
Oh yes, yes, and in terms of the conversation, in terms of Charles Darwin, I agree with when Trigger Happy says that we did investigate, and in fact, this is a conversation brought up by um this is my Haitian brethren. Yeah, this is a conversation that we had when I told
Urzuli.
him Erzuli that when I told him we did investigate in terms of evolution. I didn't have the name back then, but the name of the person who did write books in terms of evolution prior to Charles Darwin, his name is Al Jahiz. He made a book, Al Jahiz, Jahiz. He made this book called The Book of Animals. And if you reference that book, he was talking about in terms of the evolution with Charles Darwin. I believe he get a lot of shit from him. That Charles Darwin was talking about, that really started with Al Jahiz. So I do agree with that we did have our own evolutionary theories prior to Charles Darwin, but it's like I say, we have been colonized. So we operate as if we are colonized people. So until we get out of that mind state, that will continue. So we'll always reference Charles Darwin instead of Al Jahiz. But I'll stop there though.
As we were having that conversation after watching that video, I had a thought that's kind of crazy. I thought ahead to when we have power again. And I thought about how, for example, like there's a future where we have power and we have the power to define our life experience, our reality. Where like a horse won't be called a horse anymore. Like I don't know if that just hits me stranger than others, but that's a crazy feeling to know that we would have a future when we get our shit together. Where like the shit that we call a horse or a monkey or something, like it'll be some African term. It'll be some Africanized term. That's a crazy thought. That's a hopeful thought on my part, I guess. Trick Happy 262 in the chat says, "I'll do you one better, Buana. But Congo creation stories already conceptualize the emergence of existence the same as the Big Bang Theory." He says, and it all makes sense. We can't say we're the oldest people in the world, but are submitting to the lens of the youngest people in the world in terms of science. We discovered a lot of things before them. I think that's a good, excellent last point here. If there's nothing else to add, let me go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 5. Shoot the Breeze